Hello and welcome to the Drowned Kingdom Saga 7847, my channel. Welcome to a live chat about Lord and King, Book 3 in my Drowned Kingdom Saga series. Oh, thank you, Jenny. I am humbled to be able to have some friends who seem to love the series and enjoy discussing with me. Along with me, I have the esteemed Layla Goshi and Jenny Wirtz, who will be joined, I believe, hopefully later on by Blaze and Kona from Under the Radar Books, and of course my page chewing partner Taylor from May Between the Pages. Miles Cameron unfortunately couldn't join us. He's on the side of a mountain somewhere, I believe, with no cellular internet. But we miss him, and we're thinking about you, Miles. But we know that he's here in spirit. So
You should have told me. I would have made a head on a stick and we could have played the same game we played with Philip when he skipped ICFA last year. So too bad. Missed opportunity.
That is awesome. Yeah, so I'm humbled to have people coming to talk about my book and such wonderful people. I'll let you both introduce yourselves and say a few opening words. So, Layla, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'm Layla Goshi. I am what am I, editor of Ballading Magazine. I write poems, short stories, and I'm an English professor. So,
Whoa.
That
She's
is
got real credentials.
yeah,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, put all of us fakers to shame.
no,
And Janny?
Um, Author and illustrator, 36 short stories and 20 novels at this point. But before any of that, I was a reader. And I'm a huge fan of the Drowned Kingdom saga. I absolutely love it. I
yeah,
love complex characters, complex storylines, and unpredictable twists. And P.L. Stuart is definitely a master of the craft. So I am on the edge of my seat figuring where he's going to take all this because there is so much going on and so much to unpack in this volume. I'm really excited for the discussion today.
Thank you so much for both of you. I'm so honored again to have you both here. Just a quick comment from the wonderful John A. Douglas. Hail and good evening, everyone. Can't stay due to spoilers. I know you hasn't read the book yet, but take my algorithm like and comment. Thank you so much, John. We really appreciate the support. John is
John.
wonderful. Yep, check
Yep.
out his channel.
Yep.
Great fella. Um, so we're here to talk about Lord and King. Here largely to hear the impressions from everyone joining us today, Janny and Layla, and soon Taylor and Blaze later on. So here to hear thoughts, impressions, answer
Oh, you
questions.
skewered me right from the first chapter. Because all along in the back of my mind, the wheels were turning. What if the brother didn't die?
hmm
And then you throw us, the brother probably didn't die. And I'm like, holy moly, this is going to make things interesting because the two brothers love each other and hate each other. They never admitted what they really felt for each other. The whole betrayal thing. And now we got Othran claiming to be the last Atlantean king. And there is a mess. And then you threw all this history into the middle of it where what the brother was really doing. And that was something that I'd always wondered because I said, there's got to be more to the story here on the other side of the picture. So you have slam dunked the opening of this and thrown the doors wide to make all of the stuff that happened in volume one not only be not true, not only be history as rewritten by Othran, which we've seen him do repeatedly, right in your face. He likes to rewrite history and makes it a royal decree. That's all going to come home to roost and it's going to explode the story sideways. And that's just the start of what you did in this book. There are so many hidden traps under the feet and mistakes that this main character has made that are going to come back to bite him and bite him hard. And he's still making mistakes and he's still blind to a ton of things that his prejudice are knocking his eyes out. So I'm really excited for where you're going to take us. But yeah, right from the opening, I'm going, wow,
Yeah.
This author is writing to a caliber that's right up my alley. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to see it all come home. So what about you, Layla? What blew you that? So that was the first thing that blew my mind. And there were
Well,
many.
I definitely agree with that, and it made me aware actually of, I guess, his internal thoughts are actually our unreliable narrator in a way, because I did start thinking back when I realized his brother had married like I guess a witch or a magical person. I mean, even before the island sank, and I started thinking then, was something else going on here, somehow, some way. Um, but yeah, so it's made me more aware of what is he overlooking, and maybe from the very beginning he's misunderstood.
Well, we know this
Right,
because the argument he has with, what is it, Uthlin and Apol, where
right,
they tell him the history and they tell him what happened, and he won't hear it. He uses a royal decree to shut them down.
right, right.
He absolutely refuses, and then he admits, well, there's a tiny bit of truth here, but then he slams the door on it again. And I'm beginning to appreciate how P.L. Stuart is a master of symbolism, because if you read that argument scene again, Othran loses his temper. He sends them away. He forbids them from mentioning this ever again in his presence, and he throws his wine glass, and it lands on the black dragon on the carpet.
Right.
And the black dragon has repeated this little prophecy, and it's sort of there in the background about how the black dragon is going to upset the whole apple cart and the connections to the bloodlines. So where's that black dragon going to come with? So we're seeing a masterful weaving of small detail that probably is only going to be visible in hindsight, but I'm one of these horrible people that unpicks everything. It's like, whoa, you say black dragon and here's this prophecy, and now this wine glass in fury hits this carpet and spills the wine glass right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and this is happening over top of the death of a woman that this character took no particular care for. He loved her, but she was a woman. She was just there to give him air. She was there to be his helpmate. She was there to be, he came to respect her, but he truly didn't appreciate her until she was gone.
I agree.
So he
I
threw
really
that wine
felt
glass
that.
and the black dragon, and yeah, he didn't appreciate her. And you know, how much was she the stabilizing keel underneath of him, and now she's gone. And
Right.
how much is his hot temper going to upset more apple carts? So we're watching this cascade to ruin almost.
Yeah. What do you think though, that I really felt he is better off. And hi, Taylor. But I really felt he is better off having his advisors find someone for him, because he seems to be very led by his emotions and physical desires. And at first I was like, oh, true love, maybe he'll find true love now. But then I was thinking, no, I think they're right, that they need to make a strategic choice, because which will rein him in a bit as well.
You know, I had a discussion with Paul earlier because I
Mhm.
said, what is it with this guy that he's such a woman magnet? All these women who are powers in their own right and have magic are falling for him one
Right.
after the next. And I said, there's got to be something else going on. And there's got to be something. So how much do I trust Sita?
That's
And
right.
how much do I trust the document that they signed in secret that is literally black powder in a cask? Because she's got to swear off her old religion, but she's part of those covens of mages, and they have their own law and their own almost
Well,
subculture underneath of this culture. And he is sworn to secrecy, and even her father says, don't ever let anyone see that she is sworn off her religion, because it's going to be a powder keg. So there are so many directions where this whole thing could blow up.
And that part I read, and I'm like, isn't it always like real life? Like you can see, the train heading down the station in the wrong way, because someone, has made a promise, or they've thought that, they can just overlook certain things, keep certain things quiet, and then, I think it's going to harm him more than her in the long run.
It's trying to satisfy both sides of the political powder keg.
Right.
Always comes back to blow up, and we're watching it happen in the real world every
Right.
day of our lives.
Yeah.
When you play the political choice and you think that you can toe that center line and satisfy both sides, when both sides have their blood reasons why they're thinking that way. So yeah, we're watching this guy weave the web
And
around himself.
she's going to come back to want to find herself. I mean, no one can be something they're not or hide who they truly are, I think. So I think that's another story, Paul. I have a feeling you might be headed that direction, but I mean, yeah.
I'll just put her in the tower and surround her in my armies, and she'll be safe and she'll be fine. Really?
Right. Yeah.
That's sort of not allowing for her side of the equation.
And her agency. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those are some excellent observations. I just want to quickly welcome my wonderful partner from Patreon and co-host, Taylor from Maybe to the Pages. Thanks so much, Taylor, for joining us. I know you have your lovely daughter there. And
yeah, I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. She's just over here. So if I have to pick her up, I apologize. Do I have an echo?
I would love
no apology given.
Oh,
nothing to
okay.
apologize for.
Okay.
Yeah, so welcome.
Yeah, Thank
just
you.
Just giving some initial impression stuff. So anything you have to say in opening initial remarks about Lord
Okay. Well, I think I can jump on the topic that we were just on right there. Overall, I had a great time. As you can see, I tabbed the crap out of this. I think when it came to the mages, I also was like, this ain't right, because we've got queens, we've got mages, we've got all of these women who really have no business being interested in this young king who doesn't really know what he's doing yet. So I definitely was also suspicious about that, Janny. So, and then I think that's a really good point that you both made about Sela, that she's clearly someone who is going to come into her own. She's been training. She's going to be different from the last time we saw her when we meet her next. And I think Othrin is planning as if she's the person that he saw last. So I'm really excited to see her again, because I think she's going to be a very different character and a really important piece on the chessboard. And also I think she's going to have her own goals, especially after training as a mage, right? She wasn't engaged in it before, but she might have come to love it in that time.
Well, it seems that Council of Covens is tied to Nightsoul's realm, and everybody's scared of Nightsoul's realm, and we don't know the core source of that power yet. So yeah, she's going to come back changed, and how are her loyalties going to be claimed, and in what direction? There's a whole, I want to use culture that we haven't seen yet. We have not seen into it. It's just been sort of there, and Othrin kind of dismisses it, and we know it's powerful, and we know it's capable of unseating him and upsetting him. So what is their sake? We don't know what their moral high ground is. We don't know what their purpose is.
Yeah, you might find out a bit more very early in book 4. But yeah, I think I just want to make a quick more of an overarching comment. Lord and King was about Othrin being forced into a situation where now there's no more, he's not just the titular head of a people anymore, a displaced and dispossessed people. He is now a king, and he has kingly responsibilities and kingly authority. And he is forced in this book to make a lot of choices, a lot of decisions. Not all of them are great decisions. Some of them are surprisingly tolerant, open-minded, I would argue, and even magnanimous. How they all work out will be curious, considering the makeup of his kingdom, considering the alliances he has, considering, as Janny and Layla and Taylor have pointed out, And when I say alliances, now I'm talking also about his marriage alliance with Sila. And I outlined in the middle of the book when Sila was the one who was picked. I mean, he's just come from seeing Lysi, and Lysi has basically finally proposed to him and said, "Hey, like I will do anything except give up my mage power. I'll do anything. I'll give up my throne. You can have Nyrumia. I'll give my
What's going on here? Yeah, it's just
aspirations to queen. I'll do anything but that." And she tells him plainly that even if I wanted to, if I did that, I myself would be target to assassination by my own coven because it would be essentially a treason. And you should understand that because it's the way you look at people who would disavow the single God. But Arthur's like, yeah, but
but that's where your real mastery comes in, because you have a character that dismisses major things that the reader can see probably he shouldn't. You have him make grievous errors, Barefit being the glaring one. But
I was just like,
on the
oh,
other
sweetheart.
hand, yeah.
Like,
On the other
oh,
hand,
sweetie.
he has a strength and a truthfulness to him. He has a conviction and a moral code. He sticks to it. And he does some massively heroic things in this book, which are also massive mistakes. I mean, murdering that priest for that child abuse school. Man, I cheered when he did that, but that's going to be the worst political mistake he made within his own people. That one's going to come back to bite him. And yet, could he have done something else in that situation? What we discovered was so horrific. And how many people were involved in propping that up? I think we're going to find that out later. So you make us love him for his heroic qualities, even when he uses them poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And so this book is a constant twist of, Jesus, guy, will you grow up and quit being so immature and chucking the wine glass, or ordering people silent, or ordering them to rewrite history because you don't like what you're being shown. And then on the other hand, when he went after the damage that Nightsoul caused in the neighboring realm, he pulled out all stops. He did for those people what he could with more than magnanimous generosity and courage, knowing that this could come back and bite him, that this guy borders on his kingdom. He could be making an enemy. He's messing with something he totally doesn't understand. So there's qualities to this character. I don't want to focus on his stupidity and his flaws and his bigotry. There's parts of his makeup that are admirable. And so as a reader, you're constantly torn. And that's a masterful job of storytelling.
Yeah.
You love this guy, and then you hate him in the next scene because he's being a jerk. So real.
I think it is because he does lead with his emotions and passions, because the killing of the priest. Yeah, anyone in the heat of the moment would say yes, he did the chivalrous thing, and heroic, and avenged what was going on. But at the same time, I know one can't watch everything, but it comes back to the actual management and rulership of the realm. And if he and his surrounding people had been watching things all along, it might not have come to that point in the first place, And I feel like that's a lot of other things. And that's why I said I thought somebody picking his betrothed is probably better in the long run, but maybe not if he's going to force that choice.
It's sort of scary because Othran had people who were steering him that he didn't value enough. One was his wife until the very end. So he's lost her. He had Alpalt. He's lost Alpalt at this point.
That's right.
God forbid he should lose Glathan, who really does see straight and is patching up all of his little errors politically. So I find it very scary to watch the people who were steadying him being stripped away one by one.
That's right.
Is he going to wise up fast enough to carry it when they're gone? And now it's down to pretty much Glathan. Am I right? Is there anyone else that's of the old guard that was kind of steadying the boat there?
Well, Thurl's still
Well,
there, and that's an excellent. Those are some excellent points. Thurl is still there. Thurl obviously is more of a general and a warlord for Othran. At the same time, if you recall, I mean, he was Alias's brother,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Thurl gives Othran some interesting advice. And I want to quickly point out the wonderful Chibipo who joined us. Thank you so much, Chibipo. He says, I do like Hal. I like him often sometimes, but he does and has a bunch of mistakes, flaws. And we see him improving sometimes, but he doesn't jump past his flaws. And after Othran turns down Lacey and often learns that he has a wife selected for him, he doesn't know who yet until he returns to his capital. And Thurl says, brother-in-law, find happiness where you can. Basically saying, you know what, life is short. You lost your wife, you lost a wonderful, find happiness where you can. But unfortunately for Othran, his passions, and you aptly drew that out, both Jenny and Layla. He is someone who is often led by his emotions, and sometimes those can be very destructive. And the impulse of finding happiness where you can also could lead to a lack of restraint. And he's a complicated person. Jenny, so very very astutely pointed out the fact that, listen, you cheered when he stabbed Kenothan. You cheered when he killed him, but at the same time you realized, ooh, could be some messy political consequences for this, right? I just want to quickly mention about that particular scene for those of you who were or weren't aware. That entire plot thread was very much based on, for me, especially as a Canadian, about the horrific things that happened to Indigenous people in Canada as a result of the residential school system. And if you read Lord and King at the back of the book, and if you'll indulge me, I give a secondary dedication. And I say that this book is also dedicated to Indigenous people everywhere, and in particular to the Indigenous people of Canada, who have suffered untold injustices, not the least which was the unmitigated horror of emotional, psychological, sexual, physical abuse, and genocide caused by the residential school system at the hands of and administered by the Canadian government and Christian churches. So that is based on real history, a very horrific and tragic history, but it is based on history, and it is a complicated history because who is the government in this case? It's Othran. Should he have known? Well, his wife tried to warn him. What did he think? You know what? Because of his piety and because his belief and trust in his own church, hey, you know what? They're just
Yeah, but the guy who died, that guy succeeded, warned him about that guy. He had a sound advisor in his priesthood that knew what he was doing and warned him about who should succeed that power. And I think Othran tried to listen, but didn't really hear what was being said between the lines.
And that's what Othran does. And he has this thing where he gets the right advice, he has the right choice in front of him, and then it's a toss-up. What will he do? Will he take the path of least resistance? Will he take the political expedient path? Will he simply follow his emotions and charge, guns a-blazing? Or will he sit down and make a more measured approach? And Jenny raised the point about Glathan. Well, we see that Glathan, is one of the few people remaining surrounding Othran that can truly give him sound advice. But even Glathan will do what he has to do to protect Othran. That was very obvious. In terms of this whole thing with the schools, Glathan's part of the cover-up. Glathan essentially orchestrated the cover-up of what happened, the fallout, because Glathan knows that's his duty. And it's a very complicated, complex situation when you have someone who, as a king, you're supposed to know everything, and something happens on your watch, and it's horrific. And we know Othran, for all his faults, adores and loves children, and he failed them. He failed them tremendously, and he will carry that guilt. But so does Glathan, and Glathan's guilt is also about the cover up, and so much of what happens that I feel that knocks down government leadership. It's not the crime; it's the cover up.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to throw that in there. So I think Taylor had something to say about in general.
Yeah, I don't remember what the thought was that would when I went to unmute before, but but I did want to point out that something about Othrin, not only the fact that you don't know what he's going to do, which is masterfully written, because I really don't. It is a toss up. That's a really good way to put it. I like from his perspective, you're reading from his perspective. So there were moments that made me laugh where by the probably sixth or seventh time in the book that I read, it was just respectful, but I let it slide because I'm so magnanimous. Like the number of times he said the way that someone approached him was not appropriate for a king, but he was going to let it slide just this time. And then it happened like a million times in the book. I really enjoyed that little aspect of your writing where you, as a reader, you're like, sweetie, everyone talks to you like this. Like, I don't know where where you're getting this perspective from. So I really enjoyed that you're playing with the first person perspective in that way, in the same way that he thought. I think last time when we talked about the last of the Atlanteans, this was talked about in his prowess as a warrior, how he thought he was much better than he was. So I really do enjoy that you're still playing with that perspective, because it is something that you can do really well with the first person. So I just wanted to make sure that I put that out there, because I tabbed all of those moments. I'm like, this is becoming frequent.
Well, yeah, because he bookended. I mean, you open with the fact that Ethel probably survived. Then you have Othrin waking up from a dream and remembering having a nightmare of burning in a black dragon and having his uncle Yedwal's dying words and Apult. And at the end of this book, Apult dies. So there is a threading going on here of events that is being sketched out in charcoal. It's a little bit ephemeral, but it's definitely tying together some pretty ominous under rumbles. And the book is full of moments like that. It's just loaded with moments like that where something that seems wonderful happens, but then you're not sure about it. You know, the Anna Queen leaving her son with him.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't necessarily a pretty package and a nice, sweet gift. And Othrin has this moment where, is he a spy? She had her purpose. She was not a lightweight ruler. Everything she did had long range implications, and he doesn't see as far as she did. So I'm just waiting for some of this stuff, and I'm watching the threading going on of this little event tying together in the symbolism, like the wine glass hitting the dragon on the carpet. All of that. This book is just packed with moments. Almost every scene has something in it that's a potential fuse, potential Chekhov's gun, and which ones are going to go off and which ones are duds. We don't know. And so that's part of what makes it so intriguing for me, is because so many times what writers put on the page is just too transparent. Not this case. Not in this case. The hero of this book is very unpredictable and not always heroic. And the mistakes and the surrounding players and not knowing what their moral high ground is, there's enormous potential for crazy stuff to happen, and I can't wait to see where it's all going to go. And this book really opens up what the first two books encompassed. So you're stage setting to a masterful game here.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I just want to quickly, Chivapo put up a comment. He backslides, etc. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. He has clear responsibilities, but he does things often in a very impulsive, personal manner when reacting that he shouldn't. And I also want to bring that out, that I think people need to realize that often he's human, and he's a king. And I think people tend to forget that all the so-called great rulers in history were human, and some of the things they did were impulsive, irrational, made out of pettiness. not made out of political astuteness and being savvy. They did things. Today's leaders do the same thing. And that we have these high expectations of someone in ultimate charge. But how can a human being truly live up to those expectations when they're human and
And
they're
not only that, but brought up in a cosseted environment where they were taught to believe they were everything. Nobody ever crosses these people. That's why you see the sons of so many of these great rulers that amassed these empires and ruled well blow it, because nobody dared to cross them. And the same with the ultra rich, who their offspring, nobody dares to cross them. So we see this in Othran. Nobody's really stood up to him, and the ones that did were relatives that were safe from whatever blow up he was going to do, or they were more powerful than him and they could just brush him off. But has he ever truly been yanked up short by anyone? Even his brother forgave him for fomenting treason. He got off lightly. He was just exiled, and he was allowed to take all his friends with him.
though, the fact that someone like Lysi is probably one of the few people that really holds him to account. We have to take into consideration that everything with the what happened with the school, that was foreshadowed, and I take you back to the last of the Atalanteans, if you'll indulge me. And when Lysi meets Othran, and she's all painted up, and she meets him outside, the inn in Paw. And during their discussion, a lot of things are said, but one of the things that she says is, "It's simply not enough. It's not enough we simply know of your single God. We must all bind to your single God, and even that is not enough. You insist on erasing our goddesses from memory, because according to you, we were always in the wrong to worship our elementals or Sanavian gods in the first place. We're all just lost Akremian heathens knowing no better. You want to erase our history, our very memory of what you call idolatry. Conversion isn't enough for you. Repentance isn't enough. Only eradication suffices, as if there were never pagan gods and goddesses."
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what Othran's priesthood attempts to do with those children. Reprogram
right.
them, eradicate their memory of their own religion, their own faith, as if it never existed. And
I'm
that it's
living in
not.
Florida. I'm watching it happen. It's horrifying. But the other thing that really slams home here is, you were mentioning that Othran should seek happiness wherever he could find it, and he really is attracted to Lysi, but he's also terrified of her because she's more powerful than him and she can pull the rug out from under him. And so I don't see him following his heart on that one, because she terrifies him. She does rein him up short. She's the only one that really has slammed him into a wall and said, "You can't budge me off of my stance, and I can even push you off of your stance. I can knock you off center anytime I want." He doesn't want an equal relationship with anybody at this stage of his career, period. So it made perfect sense to me that he would not agree to make him his wife, because
that's why,
yeah,
for me, all of my alarm bells are going off with the Anib Queen, because I'm like, this makes no sense for her. For him, maybe attraction, emotions, things like that. But for her, this makes zero sense to do what she's doing. So, especially like you said, he doesn't want an equal, and she knows this. She knows who he is. So I was like, something.
She walked away pregnant.
Dirty.
She walked away pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to come back to bite. There are so many come back to bites. I've got a pack of notes here. Yep. I don't tab my books, but I have a pack of notes here, and also most of it's up here. I remember very clearly reading some of these pages. But yeah, there's 1,000 connections in play here. And there's nothing put down in a half-assed manner. And so my admiration for the series is growing by leaps and bounds as it goes, because I'm seeing how intricate the web that's holding it all together or going to blow it apart. But yeah, you're right there. You're totally right. That Anib Queen, what's in it for her? And
yeah,
I was commenting before this started to Paul that she is long-sighted. She sees the big picture. She sees
She
down
has
the
to.
generations. She sees behind her with very clear vision. Othran doesn't.
Yeah.
So when whatever bomb she's planted in his court goes off, he's not going to see it coming.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm very curious to hear what you all thought about Andala, about their romance, about the fact that, I mean, I think for most people, the one of the most, I hope, impactful scenes was after they'd made love, and he's trying to find a way to be with this woman, and then of course, Othran being Othran, figures, oh wait a minute, she's got the most powerful army in the world. I'll just marry her, use her army to conquer the world. We'll bring the single god's religion. Of course, she'll fall in line with me and she'll do what I want, and I'll get to have her, and because I love her, and I'll have everything I want, and I'll conquer. And of course, she throws cold water on him, basically saying, what audacity do you have when I have millions of warriors? When I have the most powerful empire and realm and army on the face of the earth, and I'm just going to hand them over to you so you can subjugate the world and force your religion on. What about mine, right? And realizing the trap he almost fell into when she says, "Yeah, you know what? Because I do love you and care about you, I thought about that for a second. But of course, in my mind, what would have happened? I would have gone along with your plan, and before you knew it, you'd be bowing down to my gods, right? Because what choice would you have? I have the biggest army. I have,
Well, not only that, she had the fighting technique. Look at that single combat at the end of the
Right.
book. Oh, Othran's like, I can't send a woman out there to champion this cause here, and boom, she kills the guy in a flat instant. It's like, wait a minute, they got you martially also. They got you tactically, they got you educationally, they've got you long-sighted, more experienced ruler-wise, they got you on the magic, they got you every way coming from Sunday. So who's pulling the pull toy? She's leading the
Right.
men by the balls,
And even the new lady queen, I forget her name right now, but she had an infatuation with,
Sila.
yeah,
That author is that is engaged to Sila, Lysi's sister.
no. Remember when is it Garth was killed?
Yeah, so
Daughter?
Tarlis's daughter, who is the new queen. Yeah,
Oh,
she kind of she has an attraction to Berduca,
yeah.
Andala's sister, but she also pretty well told Othran that, yeah, you know what, I kind of thought about us hooking up and us forming a pretty powerful team. So yeah,
So I wonder if that will come back around at some point too, But my thought as he was going through this, first, I can't see if, because like Lacey was saying, I will give up everything for you, and that's almost, I don't know if that's love either, but because you have to love yourself too, but he was not ready to give up everything for Undala, you know. So it was, in my mind, more of a dalliance, even though he thought he was overwhelmed with love, but really he did walk into something, because it did occur to me he's got a younger son, and they've taken the daughter of a lord, back with them, and as you all were saying, and I mentioned before we started, I see the younger generation coming together somehow that he may not even have predicted yet.
What about Viwa?
Huh?
Viwa.
yeah,
Vima.
We
yeah.
have not got to the bottom of her, not by a long shot. And what about Tarlis? The
Yeah,
women
this
in this book are immensely powerful. Their motives are dark right now because Othran refuses to give them credit for being any more than just a pretty face. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at Tarlis and going,
Mhm.
where are we going to? because we're forced to see through Othrin's eyes, we cannot possibly gauge what these people are about. And yet their behavior on the page suggests that there's a great deal more to them than we're being allowed to see because of his prejudice and his bigotry and his patriarchal attitude, which he's partially started to grow out of, but like Chibipo says, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back.
Yeah.
Minute it starts threatening his opinion of himself, he slams a door on it.
Yeah, and Chibipo comments, I do not trust Alton's angel, also.
No, I don't either.
Something odd is up there.
Not
I think
even a
he's
little
getting
bit.
played.
Not even a little bit. Like, I think I'm really excited to see what you do with this theme of religion that you've been working with, because I think Althrin's got a big awakening coming, because he's just been ignoring this huge thing for 3 books now. He's been warned multiple times. It's been off multiple times. He's just completely ignored it because, as we've said, he has other priorities and other things that he cares about. But what I really enjoy is how he's so blatantly hypocritical, and yet I can still like him at times. But one of the times where I was like, I don't know if this man can recover, was when he was talking to Uthlin, and they asked to leave their place, and he threw the cup and said, absolutely not. He says so many times, I don't care if someone is gay or lays with another man. But then every time it comes up, he cares. So he's lying to himself 100%. But the fact that, and the way that this ended, where Apol died,
yeah,
I wanted to read a quote here that I mark orange tabs for anger. And so one of the times that I was the angriest at him was, I said, when he's talking to Uthlin and Apol, and he says, happiness. I mocked him, happiness. My voice continued to rise. You'd weaken me politically and militarily, potentially cause a scandal that would destabilize my realm for the sake of your happiness. And I was like, that's exactly what you're doing. So the hypocrisy that you so blatantly and obviously put on the page is so frustrating for me to read as a reader.
Because it's so well done. It is so well done.
It's so frustrating because I'm like, of course Othrin would react that way, but can you not? Can you not? So that particular quote really stuck out to me. And talk about powder kegs. I mean, Uthlin, it's going to blow up. Like that.
Oh, yeah. How many of you think that Lysy knows what that angel is and she's not telling him?
Yeah.
I swear she does.
Definitely.
And even his high priest wasn't quite sure, or wasn't telling him the whole truth about what it was, because he was like going along with it. And Lysy pretty much, I think she knows. And how much of that, I start to wonder, this is my bad author brain running off on tangents, probably, and pitfalls that you're making me see that aren't there. But Nolthi and the Night Soul, how much of that angel is connected to that crap? I don't know, but I'm just wondering, it's like, I don't trust that guy. I never have since it first appeared. Pretty much told him he was a bastard, told him he was not of the royal blood. So right away, here we got this guy on the outside who's claiming to be the descendant of all the Atlantean great princes. And on the other hand, he's proud of the fact he's a bastard sired by this weird supernatural being. Mm-hmm. And how much of that is going to come to play with the old ties to Sanavia and his brother and Dira. There's one heck of a thing brewing, because he's now claiming a position that, according to his beliefs, he doesn't own. So where's he being led astray? And how is he going to claim this dual destiny that he's lying to himself, lying to his followers? And Lysy probably knows it. I'm guessing she does.
Yeah.
Well, Lysy from day one has said that your angel is kind of bad news. She said that from almost day one.
Yep.
So, and when we talk about Earthel, I think one thing why I was so pleased about some of the comments, that some people said in their reviews that, wow, we get to finally see a bit of what, even through other people, through that conversation that Taylor highlighted with Apol the Youth, which I think is critical, that we now know a bit more, according to Apol the Youth, what Earthel was trying to do, why he went off and married this so-called heathen woman, brought her back to Atlantis, basically disavowed hundreds of years of tradition, angered the nobles, incited rebellion, did all these things because, according to Erthel, from what he learned from Dira, the real ancestors and forefathers of the Atlanteans were Sinavians. They were the original settlers of Atlantis before the other settlers that claim Atlantics, being what Othrin would normally have as his forefathers. It's the Sinavians who got there first. And Erthel was trying to reinstitute that tie to Sinavia and totally reshape society so that the Sinavian heritage had precedence. That's what he was trying to do. And maybe he was trying to do that in a way that was messed up, but that's what he was trying to do. And Othrin basically says, ain't having it, right? No friggin' way, not having it.
Well, you have one guy wedded to the past, and the past is history written by the victor and the colonizer. So Othrin is wedded to that past. His brother was the progressive, who had the bigger vision, and he just moved too fast. He didn't have the political acumen to either keep his brother's loyalty through this process or hold it together. So you almost have two sides of a huge equation here, where both are wedded to their causes, and ne'er the twain shall meet. So it's a tragedy.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. But that reminded me, do you think the brother knew that the island would sink, the Atlantia? Do you think they had a...
No, he didn't know.
No, I can tell
I
you.
don't
had the
think
warning
he
of
was
the
willing to
angel, but
sacrifice that. Yeah.
Erthel tried to revolutionize society. Erthel wanted to make Atlantean society linked with its real past through Sinavia. He did it, as Jenny, so astutely pointed out, in a way that he didn't have the political acumen. He doesn't have Othrin's political acumen. But Erthel tried to do what he thought was right. Othrin did what he thought was right. The problem is the lack of communication. Obviously, Erthel didn't trust Othrin enough and his nobles enough to confide in and say, hey, listen, guys, this is what I believe, this is what I'm trying to do. Understandably, because this is an entrenched society which would have rejected that. But he, as the king, felt, hey, I'm going to be able to do this, and I'm going to do it this way. Well, it backfired on him. However, as Jenny pointed out, and I'm not saying Erthel's alive, I'm just saying that, it could be major for Othrin in terms of problems. Even if Erthel isn't alive, the fact that Othrin is not aware of what Erthel was trying to do, and Othrin has been told basically that the Sinavians are a lot more meaningful to Atlantians, their heritage, their past, everything that has to do with Atlantics. And Othrin has said, nope, shut it down, bury history. It never happened. He has totally rejected that.
And so he has a partially honorable reason. They're slavers, and he hates that.
Yes,
so
and bingo.
There's a lot of twists in this. Nobody's the good guy here.
Yeah, slavers that Lycie's also allied to, and Lycie has openly said she's peddling in slavery and is doing that, and has sold her people to Sinavians. And Othrin charges off in this uber foolish but chivalric fashion, risking himself to save a couple of Meridian family from Sinavian slavers. So when we look at what's going on, Othrin hates Sinavians, he hates Druids, he hates the whole culture. But why? And is he hating them more now because now he's been told that maybe they have a lot more to do with him than he thought? So yes, that is one of the landmines that I've decided to plant. But we also see Othrin make some actually pretty open-minded, tolerant, and progressive decisions. He decides to, and at least an attempt, to neuter the power of his own elite, and realizes that, hey, I'm in Eltnia, we are outnumbered vastly. I can't optically make it seem that Elvish religion and the six elemental gods are preeminent. However, I'm going to give them freedom of religion. I'm going to, do put some things in place to hopefully. He tries to please both sides, right? But conscious of what the situation he's in. He's an Elvish king who is an Elvish. He's got this Atlantean elite who are prejudiced against the Elvish. His overlords are Elvish. Most of his subjects are Elvish. How is he going to navigate that? And it is actually Alias who helps guide him in that direction. It's Alias, it's Fridler who becomes the new high prelate. It's Glathan. It's the people around them that, in a way, he kind of listens to them, not totally, but and also he does on his own come to some fairly savvy decisions about how to manage all that. And Arthur makes a lot of mistakes in this.
Yeah, Barefet. It's my gold. It's my right to rule this people. I'm supposed to be the overlord of this country. Oh my God. You watch him make that mistake and you go, you fool. So balanced against all the good things he's trying to do, the occasional moments where he recognizes himself, the stupidity of repeating his uncle's mistakes.
Yeah.
That was one of the most painful parts to read, watching him write that stupid letter.
Greed and pride.
The gold. It's my gold. Oh, boy.
And egged on by ignores Glathan's advice, and because he knows the Reddy, whose father was the conqueror and subjugator of Beargret, he knows he'll have an ally in the Reddy, and purposely turns to the Reddy, right? Like, think about what Alton does here, right? He has that capacity to be not only sometimes clueless, but also utterly ruthless. And yet, again, sometimes tender, kind-hearted, and we see that, I believe, in Othrin with his son. When we see Othrin with Othrin the Younger, I think that's one of the first times people get a glimpse of, you know what, of all his failings, he does love his kid. He does love his son. He loves children. And he does want the best for his son. And we see him extremely worried when his son is ill, and extremely extremely glad and grateful to Andala when she helps heal him. And Othrin, the man of contradictions, on full display here. Also, when he does something as well when he deals with Plas, and he lets him go, right? He lets him go instead of killing him. And is that a good thing, a bad thing? He's someone who is capable of making some decisions that you go, okay, you know what? I can see the wisdom in that. And then sometimes again you go, oh my God, what are you doing? And that is Othrin.
Can you explain? I feel like I missed something with Yedwall the Younger.
Yedwall the Ready, or Yedwall the Ready?
The Ready. I'm sorry, the
Ready. So Yedwall the old son, yeah.
And then his son was
Yedwall. So the Ready son is Yedwall the Bard, yes.
The Bard. So, and I can't remember exactly how this went down, but Yedwall the Bard essentially condemned his father.
So what happens is, and I think for the first time you get Yedwall the Ready's perspective. You realize he's not a nice guy. You realize he's a pretty conniving, scheming guy, but you also realize he has his own reasons and motivations for doing what he does. Yedwall the Bard, his son, has a choice. Betray his father. His father makes a plan, essentially, to ally with Barefet, to have them come and invade the continent and come and kill Othrin. And to save his own skin, Yedwall the Ready is willing to do this, to betray all of his own people. And Yedwall the Bard has a choice, support his father's plan, go along with it, go with his father to Barefet, and come back potentially at the head of an invading army against Othrin and all of their people, or betray his father and save himself and his mother, and his father would die. And that is the choice that was made. Glathan set this all up. Glathan knew what was going to happen because he knew the ready and he knew the bard. And Glathan said to Othran, hey, do this. Put this trap before them. See what Yedwall the Ready does. Yedwall the Ready will do anything to save his skin and to hold on to power and to become powerful and to because of it he feels his family name has been tarnished. And because Yedwall the Ready believes he is rightfully a prince because of his father, that he should have been a prince, that his father should have been the first prince of Eastrom instead of Glathan, that Yedwall the Ready should be even more prominent than he is. Yedwall the Ready is willing to betray everybody to reestablish his house, bring it back to glory, but his son uh, does what he believes is the right thing, especially after he realizes that Yedwall the Bard has an illegitimate child in the school, and
Like,
the school is patroned by his father, right? And Yedwall the Bard wants so desperately to blow the secret that the school is horrific, and even Yedwall the Bard doesn't realize how horrific, but he has this sense that something's going on. And when he realizes that, wait a minute, my father and Kenothan, even if Yedwall the Ready didn't even know the extent of what was going on, but still, he was willing to allow this to happen. Once he did find out, I was like, oh well, you can read in the book. He's like, okay, well, it's too bad, but geez, this is so bad that all these children died after all. They're savages and blah blah blah. So that was abhorrent to Yedwall the Bard, and he loved his father, but he made a calculated choice: save himself and his mother, do the right thing, uh, or betray his father. So
yeah, and I thought that was a great part because I remember that part now. I think where I'm thinking through Othran's role in the whole thing. I'm just curious what you all think. When Yedwall the Older died, did Othran have an opportunity? Because this this was like one of his family members essentially, you know. So is it weakening Othran or is it strengthening Othran to not have tried to build alliances with his uncle's son, even though his uncle's son was jealous of him? I don't know. I just feel like there's something there. I'm still kind of wrestling with myself, you
Well,
know?
he's still sitting on that secret that he's not really of the royal blood, and
Right,
they are. And
right.
so I think there's the unspoken threat that he was pretty happy he saw a way to take this down.
Yeah,
He had the justification. He really had to execute the father after inviting Barafet to invade, but would Barafet have even wanted to invade if he hadn't made the mistakes he had? So how much of this was I'm cleaning up my own mess?
right. That's a great point because I liked Yedwall the Older as a character. I liked who he had been and what he was trying to do for Othran. And I always felt like Othran owes his memory something, and we that's not happening at all. That's not happening at all, maybe really, because he is taking the power for himself. And
Well, I
um,
think as Jenny
yeah,
said, it's the unspoken threat, but also, I mean, this is
yeah,
Othran leading from his emotions, like we talked about. He doesn't like him, and it's as simple as that. He doesn't like the
yeah,
ready, and that informs basically all of his decisions about him, and he'll even admit that to himself. So, and
yeah,
I think he thought that he had found the perfect solution by letting the ready do his own thing. I'm not going to touch it. It's not going to be a threat to me. And it turned out that that was a mistake because he didn't factor in the ready's how deep his ambitions went, I think. So,
yeah,
and I think turning his face away from his someone who can challenge him in that way also led to the development of the old guard, which they seem from Othran's perspective to be quiet now, where I don't trust that at all. I don't think they're quiet. I think he just doesn't see it just like he didn't see the school, because the hatred that they had, to sanction the school, to have the Ready be their leader, there's a comeuppance coming from that sector for sure. So I think he made a mistake in allowing the Ready to just create something that Othrin had no eyes on, had no idea what was going on. So I think that has now sunk roots into his city, and it's going to be really hard to uproot that. So I think, in my opinion, it was a mistake to do what he did, handle him the way he did. But I think a lot of it came from emotions. He made a mistake because he didn't like him.
And also advice, because Gladden said, give the Ready a bone. Let him form these knights. It's meaningless. He'll get to play around with, and we will solve this problem of having all these highwaymen, because that's what the Ready claims he wants to do with them. Give him some prestige, feed him a bone, because let's not forget again, Othrin disinherited his uncle from being his first prince and putting his uncle more directly in the line of succession, because, as Janny said, Othrin is stealing the throne from the Yedwalls. He's stealing it, right? If Othrin believes that he is illegitimate and Sardi the Angel, then as far as we know, the Yedwalls are from old Yedwall. That is the rightful lineage that should inherit. But Othrin has totally cut that out. And Othrin disinherited his uncle in more than just that way. Othrin divorced himself from his uncle in the last year of the Atlanteans because, in his mind, his uncle committed atrocities in Barefoot and did horrible things that are not chivalrous, and he essentially is a war criminal. Even though Othrin understands why he did it, even though Othrin admits I might have to do the same things, Othrin's complicated morality is that, hey, you know what? I grew up my whole life admiring my uncle, wanted to be my uncle, wanted to be like him, wanted to follow him. But now, first of all, I can't have him be my heir, because that will delegitimize me. And beyond that, he did all these things that weren't good.
Yeah, but he's going to go after the same bone.
Bingo. That is our hypocritical Othrin.
It's like you discover that your uncle wasn't the hero he claimed to be, but now Barefoot's mine. I'm the rightful, and they're all their gold. They owe me, and they're going to fall at my feet. And I'm going like, didn't your uncle teach you anything? Evidently not.
Well, talking about... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
We all want to talk at once. Well, just seeing, Janie's reaction, like, why would you do that? The complicated morality. Another moment that comes to mind for me was I was feeling like he might have made a little bit of progress in this book. In some ways he did. But then in the end, when he finds out the plot to attack the envoy, and then he keeps it a little secret because he wants to feel smart, like I was fuming. I was so angry because I was like, did we learn nothing when you had someone killed last time? And then this time, of course, lots of other people died. And I think, like I said, it's going to come back to bite him with Apol dying. But that part, talk about 10 steps back. I was like, we really haven't learned anything, though, because he just wanted to feel smart and special with his little trap. And it kind of worked, but kind of didn't, right?
Yeah. So. Why doesn't Othrin vet this idea with Andala, of all people? Why doesn't he vet it first with Glathan? Why does Othrin decide to do this, set this whole thing up, putting them all in mortal danger? Putting himself in mortal danger. He always thinks he's the hero. He's going to get out of it. We get that. But putting the people he claims to love and claims to care about in mortal danger with this really crazy scheme that, again, has a small chance of success. Mind you, it does work. It does accomplish the goal. It exposes the plot. It shows Andala what the Selfish were up to, because they wanted her on their like, it does, but at what cost? Right? And because he often thinks he's the smartest man in the room, he always ends up pissing his own allies off, because he does this repeatedly. and he can't help himself. Part of it's an insecurity thing. Don't forget when you are someone who is always trying to justify that you're the man, that you're legitimate, that you're right, you have to appear like that, and that is something that Othrin continually does.
Well, he's made some pretty serious enemies in this book.
Yes.
Pretty serious enemies, and the boom hasn't come down on those. Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, yeah, and I did want to go back to again Undala and get some impressions about what you thought about Undala and her sister Braduca, the characters. What you thought about them?
I really liked her. Her and her sister. That is her sister, right? Because, well, disciplined, smart, you know, has perseverance just in terms of her having earned the throne, you know. And of course, she must be beautiful if Othran is attracted to her, and so I liked her as a leader. I did compare her with Lacey just because of, Othran's experiences with both of them, and it did occur to me she was much more disciplined, and she would have the better of him one way or another. So, and she's actually kind of left him in a weaker state now because he's going to be thinking of her, not only with all the stuff probably under the radar right now, but he's going to now go back to Sila?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And marry her, but be pining for Undala in his heart, probably until all the other stuff starts to blow.
I think Undala plays her cards very close to the vest.
Mhm.
And I don't think we've nearly come to see to the bottom of her. In many ways, I trust Lacey more. So Lacey is unsubtle, but she tells the truth. And she's
Mhm.
not afraid to hit Othran between the eyes. I think Undala's game is that of omission. She doesn't lie to him, but she doesn't tell him everything by a freaking long shot.
Yeah.
And if anything, I was startled that she played along with being his lover that quickly. I said, there's something more going on here because she's way too educated, way too smart, way too subtle, way too wise a political player.
Mhm.
She's got him beat at every game he tries. And she deliberately plays on his prejudices, leading him along because she knows he's not going to give her what he wants.
Mhm.
When she's not going to give up her kingdom. She's the more powerful player here, but she makes him think he's got something
Yeah.
over her. And I really loved her. I was astonished at the way she was portrayed. I was astonished she was able to break through his prejudice that quickly and take her on as a lover. But we don't know what her moral high ground, we don't know what her game is. She has planted this son in his court. What is her long game? So I love her to pieces, but I don't think she's as honest as Lacey is.
Mhm.
that's a very interesting and that's a very interesting observation. You know, Undala seems to be honest when pressed. In other words,
She doesn't
when
lie to him.
she doesn't lie to him, but not necessarily forthcoming.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. She doesn't
and
tell him the whole truth and nothing but the whole truth. We don't know what's behind her game. And that's going to be one of the fun things to figure out going forward because he sure doesn't see it coming. As a reader, I'm wondering, but he hasn't even paused to think about that. He still thinks he's got the upper hand. He still thinks that he rejected her. Excuse me?
Right.
yeah, and again, I go back to that point. Undala basically tells him, I could have gone along with your game there. We could have gotten married, and
Mhm.
what would you have done then when I have 12 million people? to your
Who
few
can
thousand.
fly into a single combat and wipe out the best knight
Exactly.
and the best trained guy in that fast? Boom, he's dead. And
Yeah.
nobody even paused to figure out where the skill level came in to do this.
Right.
It's like she kept that. She could have assassinated him at any moment with her sister.
Yeah.
So, what long range plan does she have here?
Remember the scene in Arthur's Hall when they go on their little date, and they kiss passionately. He starts to get a bit too fresh at that time for her, and she flips him and disarms him in a second,
Right.
in a split second, and has her dagger at his neck.
And he forgets it. He conveniently wipes that away, that memory away. It's like, nah, she's not a threat to me. Oh, you're thinking with your dick, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about Ndala, and what I loved, one of my favorite reviews was that somebody said you really subverted expectations the way you built up Ndala coming. We thought she was going to come and wipe, maybe wipe everybody out, certainly raise war, and she comes with her arms open, seemingly peaceful. She comes to make
seemingly
alliances.
Peaceful.
She comes to make alliances. She basically, oh, there's Severia. Hi, it's a cutie.
How sweet.
Sorry, this is Sumire. Say hi, sweetie. Say
hi. Gorgeous. Yeah. So Ndala comes.
Mention, so don't mind me. I'm back.
Oh, not at all. So Ndala comes and she basically, and Arthur is at first suspicious before she arrives.
I'm suspicious. Why would she go so far from her roots? Why would she risk herself? Why would she cross two hostile kingdoms to go visit Osmond? I'm sorry, but I still suspect her motive because it made absolutely zero balance of power or logical sense for her to make that ambassadorial trip. There is something else going on here.
And why would she let Yaden off the hook with tribute? Just so that Arthur could assume that tribute.
Yeah.
To have
there's something huge going on here. She's a crafty
100%.
player.
100%.
Yeah, well above Arthur's skill level. Above Arthur's skill level. And we talked about the martial prowess. You saw her disarm Arthur like he wasn't there. You saw Verduka take out Gart like he wasn't there. You realize the Annab are far more formidable than Arthur even could understand. And then we also see at the end that they also practice blood magic. So, what
all the ruins, all of Welly's castle, everything was built by these people. Their civilization is leaps and bounds still ahead of anything going on in Crimea. So, I'm just waiting for that one.
Yeah. Honestly, it's such a fascinating kingdom queendom. From what I've heard so far, I mean, I think that's your next series.
How much of it too goes back to Welly's parable of the lion hunt? I think there's threads buried in that little tale within the tales.
When Hurt told him about
Hurt. Excuse me, Hurt. Yes.
Yep. When Hurt told him
of the lion hunt. Yep.
Perhaps
I'm looking for that one to come back because when you tell a story within a story or you throw in a piece of symbolism, I just don't believe it was just there for the frillies. So I look at that lion hunt as a foreshadowing of something bigger.
Well, I think what was interesting about that the whole plot arc with Ndala being there and everything, I think you could read it as the kind of typical fantasy, the main character syndrome, where all of the women, fall for the main character. And I think it was because I have such faith in you as an author. I know that's not what you're doing, but I liked reading it and realizing that it could be read that way, I think. So I really enjoyed being frustrated, but knowing that there were going to be dividends paid for reading it for that part of it,
That reminds me of Chippy Poe's comment about the Unchali.
Mm-hmm.
And does it have something to do with women falling all over him? Like his, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we have to understand something here in that yes, normally Othman is very attractive. He's very attractive. He's good looking. He does have some noble, redeeming qualities. He's a king. He's powerful. He's rich.
Yeah,
He
but it's only the
is.
women with magic who are doing this.
Mm.
That is an excellent point, Jenny. That is an excellent point. But yeah, so I guess technically you can understand why he would be desirable in the eyes of powerful women, because he's a powerful man and he's good looking and he's attractive and
Yeah,
does
but
have.
see, the women in the room here are all questioning it. The man that's the target of these women is not questioning it. Othran is blind to what's really happening here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he is being played, but what's behind this? Why would somebody like Lysi say, I'll give up everything but my religion? What the hell is going on that we
Well,
don't know about those covens? I'm sorry, but there's something huge about that.
I
I
agree.
believe that the opening part, first part of A Lion's Pride, will show the book four in the Draw King saga, which will follow book three, Lord and King, which we're talking about, will shed a bit of light
Mhm.
on some of those aspects. Um, but I do want to say that and you guys are so insightful. You guys have hit on things and pulled on threads that wow, really impressive your level of analysis and what you've pulled out of this book. Stuff that I've even tried to keep like, don't look at that, look over here. So it is really impressive. But every book I write in the Drowned Kingdom saga, if you notice at the end, author does somewhat of a recap about the general theme and feelings about the book, about what happens in the book, sorry, the events. And in this one, he talks about women specifically. He talks about women and his little you know admissions and his little concessions to his attitudes about women
Yes.
come into play in this, and he talks about things like he says things like, and I quote, could one generally know women who I comprehended for the first time in my life were smarter, more capable, more courageous, and more dangerous than any man? I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't think I ever would be. And he goes on later on after he says some other things to say, women were just one more part of my tenuous, frightening, and confusing life, and where my ignorance made me vulnerable. I felt endangered. I also realized about so many things that I was supposed to be one of Elmia's most powerful people. I was a king. So, in this book, Lord and King, Othran assumes the mantle that he was hoping for. He gets the kingdom he
Mhm.
desires, and everything seems to go to hell in a handbasket at the same time. But the one thread that runs through this book is that all the women, and Jenny and Taylor and Lily, you all pointed, all the women in this book are running circles around him. Most of them, he doesn't really know what their true game is. Some of them tell him some of what their game is, and he still doesn't see it. So he's very befuddled and baffled by the women of his life, and because he's befuddled and baffled by women, period, and he doesn't really truly understand them. He underestimates them. He underestimates his wife, as Jenny astutely pointed out. Alias tells him things, and he does not realize until it's too late. Now
Yeah, but
he's
then no,
lost.
the culture's screwing it up too, because my big question is they're all got this thing for Neitzel, and they're all scared of
Yeah.
him. And we've seen this power that can unmake and destroy, and everybody's terrified of this. And yet, Neitzel doesn't play. It's the women. It's Nolte. It's the covens. It's and she's creepy. She's described as looking like a corpse, and nobody likes her around. And yet, all
Mhm.
these women are tied to her.
Yeah.
So is Night Soul really the power in that realm? What is actually going on? Or is it the women running the cart before the horse here? So in some ways, I'm watching the Crimean culture be blind to it. The men in the Crimean culture because they're all scared of Night Soul, but they're not talking much about Nelte, but the women are.
Yeah,
and yet the women are becoming part of these covens, which are connected. The whole Council of Magus thing is connected through that kingdom. Why aren't they running like hell from this power? And they're all terrified of her. They don't like her. She looks like a corpse. She creeps them out. Yet they're all running to her for training. So what the real fuckity fuck is going on in that kingdom?
Yeah, and Lysi's explanation is that the mages have this dual responsibility. They are mages, and they're there to protect Elthnia and serve Elthnia's best interests first, but they are also there to protect their kingdoms and serve the interests of their kings and their queens. Now, that requires a level of juggling and balancing that is probably unrealistic. When we consider that Nalthi is the actual head of the Covenant Mages, she is the leader of all the mages. That throws a definite wrench into if Nalthi is evil, then are the mages evil because they're following her? Are they just corrupt? Are they too scared of her?
And what about Night Soul's wife that everybody is scared of? That they admit they're scared of her. Barbie. So there's a tangle there that we haven't been allowed the insight. We've just gotten hints around the edges.
Well, some of those hints will start to get really pulled back.
I'm sure.
In the next book.
Well, speaking of, though, having faith in you as a writer, she's got the hiccups. So, but when that mass destruction happened, when I think it was Barbas supposedly brought that mass destruction down upon that
Meridia. Nalthi really leading it, but yeah, Barbas there as well. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, please correct me. But
no.
when that happened, I immediately thought there's got to be more to this story, because I don't think you're just going to write a big bad. I don't think there's just going to be this evil force that everyone can unite against. Because so far, allyship is not cut and dry in your books, and it's not supposed to be cut and dry. It's all about, the realities of that world of power. So I'm very interested, not just to see what's going on, but I was suspicious from the beginning, because I was like, there's not going to be this big bad power that just destroys everything and leaves and, does the evil laugh in the background. I really don't think that's the case. So I'm with Janny at really wanting to know what's going on in there, because it's definitely not what everyone thinks.
No, because you also have all these mages. We talked about what they believe their role is, but they all have their own ambitions. They all have their own side plots. They all have their own schemes. Lysi probably the most scheming of all. And so what does that mean they say on one hand they're there to protect Elthnia, but are they there to protect Elthnia only the way they want to protect Elthnia? Are they there to protect Elthnia only after their own selfish interests are served?
Why did they so easily give up the Golden Valley to Othrin? He became the buffer zone between this faction that's sitting in those mountains. And they all said it was choice land. It was an absolutely choice piece of land, but nobody really wanted to defend it. So they sort of flung him that bone to stand as the force between them and whatever's going on that mountain. So yeah, there's a lot that Othrin just isn't paying attention to. I would be asking, why would they be willing to give him this? Because the Golden Valley was not cut out to be a no man's land.
Yeah,
so what made it that?
On face value, Welly gave Othrin the Golden Valley to become his warlord and to protect them against Karth-Luge. Well, of course, that's all changed now, and they're all allies. But as well, we know that, yes, between Othrin and Berenia, Night Soul's realm lies Bedonia, that is peaceful, that has an ineffectual army, that certainly can't fight anybody with any degree of success. But the political complexities of what has happened now, and I talked at length about this in Lord King, has really changed the landscape. Scylla and Lysi are half sisters with Barbas, who is wedded to Night Soul. you know, this is Othrin is basically become Barbas's brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
saw that. And also there was that mess between the Meridian King is scared of Night's Hole. And so Othrin stands to be allied with that kingdom too. It's going to be a political freaking mess. It's a spaghetti pile.
yeah, and you have things that have happened like Viwa reveals that, hey, Olysia, that rich kingdom that hurt described the drowned kingdom got destroyed by Night Soul. Was the rightful heir to that kingdom, and now she's wants to offer herself to Othrin as a mage because and all this time she was hiding that, and but essentially she was Viva's father. Ralph was Lacey's
Viva. Yeah, we're back to
agent.
Viva again. We're
She
back to
was
Viva.
she was Ralph's adopted daughter, and Ralph was Lacey's agent. And Lacey was there to ensure that Luncheon did not fall into the wrong hands according to what Lacey desired. So Lacey was trying to influence Luncheon politics. So you have a lot of these things going on that, ooh, if there's Othrin has no clue.
Yeah, I was about to
No
say that.
clue.
He's walking on top of about 50 powder kegs, and he's like, I just want to be king. I've got control of this. I'm going to build my stone tower. It'll all be fine. And it's like, you walked into a political powder keg that you have no idea.
Well, I
None.
think
You are not
also
equipped to handle this.
he's not. And I think, we spent a lot of this time complaining about him, and rightfully so, because he is so frustrating to read from. But there were moments where not just with the school where you're happy that he's following his passion because you're like, yeah, get him, but not just that. But there were moments where I was like, oh, you're so cute. Like when he was
Yeah.
going to meet the queen and he was like checking in the mirror, and he was making sure that he looked good and he wasn't happy with the way he looked. Like he's still young. And I think those moments remind you that he's young. And I realized in those moments because I tabbed them saying, oh, this is really cute. And I didn't expect to find him cute. And so
I'm
I
waiting.
think
Yeah, that. But
I'm worried.
yeah, I am, because they all think they've got him on puppet strings.
Yeah.
He's got 1,000 different allies thinking they've got him under control and on puppet strings, and that he's not going to step out of certain bounds. And we know there's a core to him that will not budge. He is steel at the core, and when he decides to go AWOL and cut those puppet strings and go berserk in his own direction, it's going to throw a winger into everybody's
Yeah.
pie. And he has the capacity to do that when he finally takes charge. And he is just flawed enough that you don't know whether he's going to blow it all up and screw it for everybody, or he's actually going to emerge and accomplish something. So
I agree.
it's
I
this,
agree.
you don't know which way the sword's going to fly.
Yeah, and I think what those moments showed me, as well as what you just said, is I'm worried for him. Like I care about him. I want him to be able to accomplish something despite all of the complaining that I do about him. And that's just masterful writing.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, there could be a powerful reverse where they all think they have him in hand. And the Anubian queen, everybody thinks he's going to play their little game. They've got it. And his crazy passion could wing it all into the dumper very quick.
Because remember, at his core, I can't remember if it was Taylor, Layla, or Janet said this, that you might have also. At his core, Othman is also unpredictable, and he may think he's the smartest person in the room. He's not, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have cunning. It doesn't mean he doesn't make dumb choices or do dumb things. But that doesn't mean he doesn't come up. He does a lot of. He gets outsmarted in this book a lot. I remind you of Rupa, the Sanavian, who she ran him around in a little circle, and and he was like, wow, you got me. But at the same time, he does do some outsmarting too, and he does have a cunning that added to his unpredictability, added to his, frankly, his fearlessness, because Arthur may be scared of a lot of things, but he's not scared of conflict. He may be scared of a lot of things, but he's not scared of battle.
Yeah, so there may be a head-on where he upsets other people's apple carts in ways they don't expect. So this could get kind of fun. And whether he does it heroically or stupidly, anybody's guess.
I wanted to. I know we'll be here for an hour and a half. I know we could talk about this. I'm so honored that you all want to talk to me about my book. This has been so fascinating. I do want to get while we're winding down here, just some overall impressions. As now, you all three of you have read all three books, and so what are some of your favorite theories? Where do you think certain things are going? What are some things that are really percolating there? Like, like I'm really fascinated to hear now that you've read all three books. I think for some of you, you've seen some things that were foreshadowed from book one that have come to fruition. Some things are still very much, as Janie says, powder kegs that they could go off at any time. We don't know where this is leading. We don't know where this is leading. So what are some of your theories? What are some of the big questions you have? What's burning in your brain about the series?
Which character in this whole political hot mess is going to come through with the altruism? Because we have not seen their moral high ground. We don't know who's going to come through and be altruistic. They all have shown their selfish side. They all have shown their manipulative side. They've all shown their cunning and their smarts. They've all shown their ability to manipulate Othran. But so I'm waiting to see who's going to step forward and really become the admirable character out of the lot. And it may be none of them. And so you're keeping me guessing, and that's what I really enjoy about these books is very few books keep me guessing to this degree.
Yeah, I agree. And I've mentioned some already, a few little predictions I have here and there, like Ingresa and Mava, and just some, about the next generation. But something that really has been the back of my mind, I haven't mentioned yet, is about the land. And like when Lacey said she would give up her kingdom and all that, I've kind of wondered the coven is if they draw their power from the natural world, and if the sinking of a Crimea has something to, like, do they have some influence over the natural world, where they get the red hair, and that means that they can kind of manipulate things, and so I'm getting that vibe.
Yeah, well, Lacey knew what the Ancelli is, and she warned him, and the Ancelli warned him to get off of Atalantis before it sank. So
Right.
how is the elemental magic connected to the actual elements in the world? We haven't seen that one yet. So you raised a really good point there.
Because the women, in that case, the women would kind of represent the land itself. And when he's saying he doesn't understand the women, is he also saying he doesn't understand that that natural power and the land he's actually on, So I'm kind of playing around with that idea. Yeah.
Taylor, any
Well, they mentioned a lot of my big questions, of course, the mages and the covens, but just kind of going long term, I'm really interested in seeing Berefet, how that comes into play, because I foresee like a massive battle, and I'm really curious what our alliances look like, who's alive, who's not, when that happens. So when I think about the future, I love that you set that up, because that gives my adult epic fantasy heart, like a big battle to look forward to.
That
and
fantastic
at writing.
How do the Senavians connect to Berefit?
Mm-hmm.
And if Earthel's still alive, how does he connect to Berefit as the progressive mind? So yeah, there's a whole unplayed connection that could definitely be a live wire in the background that's crackling, but we don't get to see it yet. And so there's could be shocking developments that are not so shocking in that direction, because if Earthel could see the Senavian culture for what it was, what did he make of Berefit? What did he make of Uncle Yedwal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did he make a mistake for giving his brother?
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah,
so I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please, Taylor.
If it was the same topic, I'm just going to say one more thing, and then we could go back to it if you wanted to expand upon that. But for me, that's one thing that I'm very much looking forward to. But I just wanted to say overall thoughts for the story as a whole. There's a reason that Othran is first person, because he's frustrating to read from. He's flawed, but you show slight changes. You really deal with the morality of humanity, a kingship, all of that, and get into the nitty gritty of how someone can progress and if they even can. So I think for me, very rarely do you speak directly to the reader. You work within the confines of what the character would say and do. But a moment where I felt like you were really speaking to me in this book was when you have Glathan talking to Othran, and he says, "Why do I believe in you? Because I was you." And then he says, "How have I become who I am today? Is because I traveled." And as someone who has now, I have ties in another country. I've been very, very lucky to travel the world the way that I have in my short life. And that I tabbed the crap out of that page, because I felt like you were speaking to me there to say I traveled, and that's how I learned, and that's how I grew, and that's how I became who I was today. So I do think that while the political schemings are like one of the main driving forces in this book, I do think that your conversations about morality shine through. So my overall view of the book is kind of those discussions really sunk. They hit for me. You talk about racism a lot in this book, which we didn't really touch on, I guess. But your discussions of those things, they did hit for me. So that's part of my overall view of the book as well.
Yeah, the other one, those themes were very powerfully strong in the first two books. This one, other things have begun to come before. So those themes that you just brought up are continuing to play through, which is why I think we discuss them less today, but they're still very much in the forefront. I want to ask, how many of you really trust Scylla? I don't trust her.
Not
because
at all.
she doesn't always tell the truth. She's got this conflicted set of deceptions, and then she apparently sort of comes clean but doesn't. I mean, I don't trust Scylla. I really don't trust Scylla.
Well, Scylla managed to hide the fact she was a mage from Lyce, her own sister, who is supposed to be one of the most perceptive, powerful women in this universe. Scylla managed to, knowing that she wanted Othran, managed to finagle herself. And remember, you may or may not remember, because I know this is a lot to unpack. Typically all these kingdoms were putting forward these suits for Othran's hand. And a lot of times it was the rulers putting forward the hand of their daughters, their sisters, etc. And Scylla broke from the suit from Early, her adopted father, and put forward her own suit for Othran.
Yeah.
She's slippery. She is slippery. She lies to people. She's about to go join the covens. And she's given me the creepy feeling from the first.
Well, I guess you'll have to wait till the next book to see,
And he isn't married to her yet, so what could happen there? It's not a given. It's not a done deal.
No,
Yeah.
but I do want to quickly talk about racism, prejudice, bigotry in this book. That I did, for the first time, you've seen the Black people of this world. You also found out that in the South, those people are essentially they're reminiscent of South Asian, and they are descended from Barefet. And you get to see these people show up on Othran's doorstep. And there's a very critical scene. Taylor talked about some of that whole scene when Othran decides to, yes, accept this tribute, take it on, have Yaden and Glennie as vassals, accept this tie to Andala. And Glathan drops the other bombshell. Like, yeah, not only are you going to accept the Black people coming to visit, but you're also going to take on the brown people as well. And these brown people look just like the enemy, essentially, the Barefitish that you're prejudiced Atalanteans are going to despise. And others like, I'm not ready for this. I cannot handle this. I can't. What am I going to tell them? Like, how am I going to cope with this, right? Like, I'm not. And like, how do I rationalize if all these people of other different cultures and races and skin colors are as good or better than I am? What does that make us? We're supposed to be the best. We're supposed to be the peerless. How can I because for him it's all about comparisons. Who's the better fighter? Who
Mhm.
has the bigger kid?
Hierarchy.
It's all comparisons. And Glathan, who I mean, I know a lot of people love Glathan. I love Glathan, obviously, but the one thing that Glathan does in this book is that yes, we know many times he's been Arthur's conscious in some ways. Yes, he covers for Arthur. Yes, he covers up his flaws and mistakes, even if it's dastardly. But Arthur says some things Glathan says some things. Glathan says, based response to it, does their greatness, so the greatness of these other people, does their greatness lessen our own? Asked Glathan. Can one still be exceptional without comparison to another? Is everything different doomed to be lesser? Right? And Authorin says, I've come as far to believe that other races, other religions are relevant. Now you want me to take the leap that they are equal or better, yet believe that doesn't diminish us? Right? And Glathan says, if a king doesn't diminish himself, then no one can. And Taylor's point, and it was exceptional, about Glathan telling Arthur that he's traveled, he's learned, he's evolved. Glathan says something at the very end of this part that he says, you're a great king and I have faith in you. The key to your evolution is opening your doors and your heart and welcome, so you may understand, appreciate, and come to admire others for their greatness, seeing their greatness shine as a mirror of your own. So Glathan is a wise man, and like his wife Alias, who's now gone. Glathan is someone who's tried to impart a lot of wisdom into Arthur over the course of Arthur's life. He hasn't always heeded it, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been presented with it. So, but
Glathan trusted Scylla, and Glathan picked her. So I think Silas pulled the wool on him, and he's a pretty wise character, so I'm waiting to see it. I know, I look for trouble under the rug.
No, but that's excellent. And the final thing about race and prejudice I want to see is you saw Andala as someone who, as a Black woman, was uber powerful, was uber confident, was extremely, extremely intelligent, and her approach to everything was she was above it. She didn't ignore it, but she rose above it. And when she calls Arthur on the carpet a few times and she challenges him and essentially says, you know what, what about me leaving my son here? How are you going to protect him from that? How are you going to raise him to be a great lord, not just a great soldier? And how are you going to deal with this prejudice that he's going to confront? The only Black person in your realm that already has prejudiced elites. How are you going to protect him from that? What are you going to do about that? Right?
She's subtle. She's a subtle worker. Her way of putting him down was so subtle. She did it so gently. I really love her as a character because she's uber powerful, but she doesn't wield it like an axe. She could have destroyed his ego, but she didn't. She just gave him little nudges. So I love her character. She's probably the master player in the whole book that's come forward so far.
I was also really, I didn't know who would come to help her son, because I knew he was going to face some disgusting racism at some point in the book. And so I didn't know he would come forward. So I was really surprised when it was Thurl. Because I didn't expect, like I said, I didn't know who to expect, but it wasn't him. So I really enjoyed seeing that aspect of that character, that I wasn't sure that he had that in him, really, to shut down racism in that way.
Always been there as a quiet, devoted soldier and someone who does his duty, someone who supports Arthur, is blunt, very straightforward, but doesn't get involved in a lot of politics, just wants to be that soldier, that tool, that weapon, and Arthur wants to use him as such. But in this book, we see Thurl come, basically, he's going to marry someone that Arthur doesn't believe is worthy, and Thurl comes and says, listen, man, she makes me happy. So please let me do this because, and, and he also hints at the fact that he has experienced, he's not just this unthinking killing machine, that it bothers him to do some things he does. He does it because he thinks it's necessary, but, hey, it bothers me. I see the faces of the people I've killed, right? This elite warrior, right? And in this book, Thurl also supports Othrin when he needs him the most. When Othrin is grieving over his wife, and he knows he can't be with Lysy, Thurl says, "Listen, find happiness where you can, brother-in-law. Find happiness where you can, right?" And Thurl's always there for Othrin. He doesn't say much, but when he says something, it's always meaningful,
He has
right?
Aliaz's touch. You can see that running in the family.
Thurl is the one that said when Othrin was ready in the last Atlantis to totally dismiss Viva, she's just a barmaid. Thurl's like, really, really think about what you're saying, right? Her father was Lysy's spy, and she's just a barmaid. I heard them having a conversation. Like, I don't think so, right? Thurl is that guy who he's one of the people that Othrin hopefully will at some point understand how valuable he is to him,
Right.
not just as a general.
Right.
Because Thurl is one of the few characters now remaining that had Othrin's back, and that's going to be few and far between. As we see the series.
So maybe he's one of the altruistic characters because he's so quiet about what he does.
And he is family. Oh, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, Layla. Sorry, what?
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. It just popped out. He's also a family cousin,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He is a cousin.
He's a cousin, not just a brother-in-law, and he, but we will see more of Thurl as time goes on. And I want to quickly, as we're beginning to wind down, say, as I said last broadcast, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join me to talk about my book. I can't thank you enough for reading it and leaving reviews and talking about it and telling people you like it and telling other people that it's worthwhile reading. I can't thank you all enough for the support you've given me. Um, Taylor has agreed to. I've been privileged to have some amazing people provide cover fodder for my books, Janny being one of them. Taylor is generously one of the people, along with Blaze, who will be doing so for the next book, Alliance Pride. I'm hoping and praying that Layla will do me the honor in future books.
Oh, sure.
If she can use the series to put an endorsement on cover. And all I can say to you is thank you for having faith, and hopefully Alliance Pride is the turning point of the series. It's book 4 in a 7-book series. So you can imagine stuff's going to go down.
Looking forward to it.
So hopefully some of that faith that Taylor was talking about, I'm honoring Taylor, the faith in me as a writer. Hopefully that faith will be rewarded in some of the things you see that happen in Alliance Pride.
And when does that come out? When do you plan?
The spring of 2024. So
Okay.
just a couple months. It's in editing stages right now. My editor, Christine Bodie, she seems to really be taking to it. And I cannot wait for you all to read it. And hopefully you get the payoff with some of the things that you've been saying. Thank you for sticking with Othrin. Yes, he is an unlikable character, but I hope you find him an interesting one and one that is worth reading, and that through his eyes, some of these issues that we've been groping with and grappling with for centuries and are still perplexed by today, you'll see them manifest and spoken about in obviously in a fiction book where we can take them head on without perhaps it seeming as real. So
it's one of the aspects of the books I like the best.
I also want to thank Chibapo, the wonderful Chibapo, for stopping by and being so supportive and joining the chat. He's amazing. Look out for book 4, Alliance Pride, in the spring. I also want to, of course, thank my guests and give them some time to sign off, tell them where we can find you, find your books, find your YouTube channel, things that are going on with you. So please, please take some time to promote yourselves here. I know you're all very selfish people, but talk about you and what you do for a minute. Taylor, would you like to go first?
Sure. So you can find me on my booktube channel. It's the label is here when we're full screen, and it's made between the pages. You can find me, on that channel. I do vlogs, reviews, lots of booktube videos, and of course, I'm beside PL a lot of the time on page twoing. So you can find us together quite often. I also am an assistant editor at Before We Go blog and a Smithbo 9 judge. So you can find my reviews in a professional capacity at Before We Go blog, more personal capacity on Goodreads. All those links are down below, as well as my Twitter and all that stuff. Also, just wanted to point out that I always have PL's books behind me. So the first one is The Last of the Atlanteans. No, it's not. The first one's The Drowned Kingdom. Last of the Atlanteans is the second one. So if this intrigued you at all, if you popped in and maybe weren't spoiled too much, please pick up the series. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book, Gail. I really did. Being a mom, I wasn't able to space out my reading as much as I'd like. So I read this in some big chunks over the last couple of days, and I enjoyed myself immensely. So I cannot wait to get to the fourth book. So thanks for writing it.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Can't wait to see your review of it. I know you do amazing reviews, so I'm hoping you'll honor me with one. I can't wait to see what you have to say. I've heard some of the feedback today, but I'm humbled that you feel that way about the book. So
Of course.
thank you. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule with your beautiful bundle of joy to read my
Yes.
book.
No worries.
Layla.
I guess you can find me on X, on Twitter X, and other social media. I have some poems and short stories coming out next year, so things are going good on that front. Hopefully, longer pieces that I'm working on, and I hope to get my magazine site going again. And Janny, we need to talk about maybe if you'd like to chat on my magazine site sometime.
Well, go ahead. I'm easily accessible.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully start to get a schedule on that. Yeah. So that's basically what I'm doing right now.
Thank you so much, Layla. Layla, I had the honor of interviewing with Layla on her magazine, her YouTube channel. So, and that was fantastic. We had a great time. So, check out Layla's content. Phenomenal. So, and of course, Taylor. I mean, what can be said about Taylor's content? She's fantastic. Her vlogs. I mean, you should be following me to the pages. Everything she does, she is awesome. And of course, my page viewing co-host. Couldn't do it without her. So, Jenny.
I'm the only Janny Wirtz in the world. If you look me up, I'm easily accessible, easy to find. I do answer my email. It's pretty public. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on my Goodreads account. I frequent a few other places. I have a new Blue Sky account. It's not woken up yet, but go ahead and pick that up because I'll be watching for trying to find my people there in case this Twitter thing blows up and becomes untenable. I also have a fan page on Facebook, but I don't go in there very much. That's pretty much run by my web guy. So messages are turned off. If you really want to reach me, use my email. But I follow quite a few and watch a lot of your YouTube channels. Just right now, my account with YouTube is not letting me log in. It wants my phone number and I don't want to give it to them. So I haven't been commenting on your videos, but I've been watching a lot of them. So I enjoy what you do for the book community. P.L. Stuart, I love your Drowned Kingdom series. I mean, I seldom can dig into a book this deeply and still be wondering what's going to come out of it. So, and I love the themes, and I love that you're playing some of the modern world's problems out on the fantasy page.
Yeah.
With the varnish off, because it really deserves that kind of respect. And how can we make changes if we don't talk about them? And books are a wonderful place to do that. So thank you for your courage for putting those themes out there unabashed and throwing the plate right in people's faces as, look, this needs to be paid attention to. So keep writing. Above all, keep writing,
Mhm.
because I'm looking forward to your next volume tremendously.
Yes.
You have a fan.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Coming from my favorite author and someone who I believe is one of the most iconic fantasy authors ever, that is high praise, and it means so much to me. Thank you. And of course, I am honored to consider you a friend. Um, yeah, that's we're wrapping up here. Thank you so much. We're almost at 2 hours. I just want to say that for me, the books www.plstore.com. If you want to find out about Dragon Kingdom Saga, of course, I am on Exeter, Twitter, whatever it is, sinking ship or not. For now, I'm also on Blue Sky. I just joined there recently. Facebook and Instagram not as frequently, but I do check that. Page chewing, probably where you'll see me the most, beside Taylor on her channel or my channel. We have some fascinating guests, I believe, from the writing community that are worth checking out. Every episode, I think, is worthwhile. All these people are so worthwhile. The creatives that we get to talk to, we're so privileged to be able to do that. And Goodreads, I said, for reviews before we go blog, where I'm also an assistant editor. So shout out to the wonderful Ben Tabler. And just quickly, Alliance Pride Book 4 in the Dragon Kingdom Saga will be coming out, God willing, without anything happening in the spring of 2024. It's with the editor now. People like Taylor will be some of the first readers outside of the editor to read it because she's providing cover fodder. And I hope that this next book is a game changer, because that's how I personally feel about it as the author. So I hope for those of you who are thinking about checking out the Drowned Kingdom saga, it's not finished yet, but hey, maybe a good time to dive in if you're willing, because we're at book 4 and it's a 7-book series, and you'll have time to catch up. So, but once again, thank you so much to my wonderful guests. Thank you for joining me and being able to talk about my book. And we will, thanks again to anyone who joined the chat, who has been watching the live. And hopefully you all will join me for this again for Alliance Pride, if you're willing. So,
Oh,
Of
sure.
course. Sign me up.
Yes.
okay, fantastic. All right, everyone, good night, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye now.
Good night.